Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dragon Talk. I am Greg Tito, and we have
Shelley
Noble, and an amazing call-in guest, Deven Rue. Hello,
Yay, Deven!
Oh,
happy birthday to you!
Happy birthday, Deven!
Can't believe it.
I know.
We did not.
Bad for 65,
Damn, you look good.
right?
You've had an easy life.
Easy life.
Bonbons and lounge chairs.
Yep.
Nice. That's funny. I don't think people younger than 30 know what bonbons are. So
Really?
Yes.
Bonbons aren't a thing?
See, proof. I really am 65.
Yes, exactly.
And clearly I am close in age because I know exactly what you mean. Why don't people know what bonbons
When's
are?
the last time you saw bonbons in the store?
I don't know. You don't know what bonbons are?
Couldn't tell you.
Wow.
See? Ryan's young.
Okay.
Sean's young.
All right, whatever.
Do you know what
Let's
bonbons
just get
are?
on with the interview now.
Yeah, it's all over now. We had no idea that it was your birthday when we booked this, which is crazy. And I didn't even know it was Shelley's birthday also.
He doesn't care.
Which I didn't care about because I was like, we only do this on Fridays.
Which I don't care about.
But what a happy circumstance.
I know. Yeah. How do you feel about sharing your birthday? Be honest.
I've been sharing it with my aunt since I was born. I
Oh.
was born on her birthday.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My,
and she actually is 65.
Oh, really?
My daughter has a cousin who has the same birthday too, so they have that bond of being like,
Is it a
"Oh,
bond or is it like?
No, they like it. Yeah, they're excited about it. At the end, they're like, oh, we're like buddies.
Well, I used to hate it.
Really? You
Yeah.
didn't like sharing birthdays? Oh.
Though as I've grown, I'm okay with it. I realize more people are probably born on February 1st than just me and Burt Reynolds. But I think it's his birth. I actually do think it's his birthday.
Yeah.
When I was little, my uncle's birthday was like 3 days away from mine, so we would often have these not often, it happened twice, joint family parties. And we look back at all these pictures, and I'm sitting on his lap, and I'm like 4, and I'm like this. Like this really like mean face on, like,
Aw.
this is not cool. 2 years in a row, and then they stopped.
They stopped. They're like,
Yes.
no,
I
we
mean,
got
like,
split.
he obviously wasn't trying to steal the thunder of a 5-year-old. He could care less. But
That's what you
Well,
think.
the only time that I hated sharing my birthday was my aunt's 50th because nobody celebrated mine to go to her.
Aw.
yeah, that's tough when their milestones are trumping.
I mean,
yours.
30 is a pretty big milestone too.
Yeah.
Crashed the party. That was fine.
Heck yeah. As well you should.
Me and
Well-
a bunch of bikers. No, it's
Where, Rikers Island?
bikers.
Oh,
Bikers.
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 Room.
Oh, that would be a fun party to crash. I'm in.
All right, cool.
So we're here talking to you because I've been a fan of your work that you've shared online for a long time. I love the maps that you create.
Thank you.
It's amazing the amount of detail you put into it.
Was so happy you said all of that before I got an interview because I'm sure I was crimson while watching
Aw.
you talk about it. I was like, no, don't do this while I'm on air.
He's a super fan.
I love it. I love it a lot. So when did you start? When did you begin, making maps? Was it doodles when you were a kid?
Well, yeah. I mean, so I started playing D&D at like 14.
Wow.
And my very first map was about 16 years old during an argument in D&D
Wow.
about where we were and where we had to go.
Were you the DM or you were a player?
I was a player, and it was one of those, like, you play for 5 minutes and you argue for like 2 hours over the 5 minutes of gameplay kind of group. And it was just like, let's just end this argument. And we were actually, all right, most of them were arguing with the DM to where we had to go. So I was like, we started here, and then we went this way, and then we, got into a combat, and then we went this way, and this is where this village was, and this is where we did this thing, and so it was just a really bad bubble with lines on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of at least calmed the argument enough where they moved on to a different subject finally. And so I just started doodling and filling it in because the rest of the argument I didn't care about. And my DM leans over, he's like, hey, that's not that bad. Can I borrow that? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then that like sparked my interest, like, where do maps come from? Like, why did we start them? How do they work? And so I went to school the next time I was at school, and I went to my earth science teacher and said, hey, how does the Earth work?
Whoa.
Just an open-ended
That
question.
is like the question all earth science teachers are waiting for someone to
Oh,
ask
yeah.
them.
That's right. Yes.
Way too enthusiastic to answer my questions, and I just got like a huge stack of books, and he's like, here, and anytime you want to ask me a question. And so that's essentially how I started. So, and then I took landscape design when I was younger, and just because I liked the way that a lot of the drawings looked, and it was a great way for me to actually learn perspective because I have a visual impairment, and it was a great way for me to work through it. And then I started doing them as props for my own D&D games, and then because I love them and collect them, so I just make my own.
Oh.
And then oddly enough, I just shared it online, and everyone's like, "Wow, those are great!" I was like, "Really?" They suck. Who am I to judge? Apparently.
Yeah, and then so you've created. I mean, is this your full-time job now? Is creating maps?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which is
Like,
insane. Yeah.
when you were 16, doodling your first D&D map, did you ever think, like, this is a job? Like, I can
Nope.
get paid and make a living doing this?
No, I mean, I think every kid, especially when you play video games or you play D&D, you're like, oh man, if I could do this for a living,
Right.
you know, and now I do this for a living, you know. So yeah, 14-year-old me is losing her mind over
Yeah.
That's
You know.
amazing.
So do people commission you to do maps for their games or just in general?
Yes. So I usually do it through Patreon because it's a lot easier, and so I can also offer the maps free to the community. So because if you can't, essentially, paying somebody to do a map full time, that map's taking anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks to create,
Wow.
depending on the amount of detail. And so obviously, if you had to pay somebody's salary for like a month,
Yeah.
yeah. So what we kind of do is we share it across my entire Patreon. And so all of us kind of pay for each other to get their maps made, as long as I get to share it with the community. So everyone can essentially afford a map if they can't commission me directly.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love that.
So how would somebody give you the details about the world they want created?
I tell them to give me what's absolutely necessary. Because everyone wants to tell me their lore and their history, which is great, but it doesn't tell me what's on the map.
Right.
So I just want the least amount of details as possible, because I love to fill in with tons of unusual details, and I want to create things that really inspire your players to explore. So if you tell me like, okay, this is like generally like this is a swamp area, or you just don't tell me anything at all, I'll just make you this incredibly detailed map with caves and caverns, and I put X's randomly in places. I put runes and stuff, and I tell a DM you have to really go over the map because your players will find what you miss.
Yeah.
So, and if they ever come across something you didn't notice, just say, well, the only way to find out what's there is to go explore it.
That's awesome.
It's more than just a map. Like, you're kind of essentially DMing for people because you're leaving these little treasures and filling in details that maybe even the DM didn't know were there.
Yeah, I want to inspire as much exploration and desire to really truly go and play the game and go on an adventure as I possibly can. And a map should tell a story. It's not just like a functional thing to tell people like there's a road here. It should really inspire your players to want to get out there and do more. And if something isn't working in one area, they can kind of go to another and just to get out, hopefully move the story along when they want to like argue over a particular place.
Yeah, I think that's almost why I find your maps so enticing, is because it's not just a recreation of the features, right? It's not just like this a mountain range, this is forest, blah blah blah. It's that love of storytelling that is so infused in every kind of map that I see from you, that elevates it. It's not just even the fantasy artwork that I've seen made for novels and things like that. You can almost kind of tell that it's the it's another person who's trying to interpret a storyteller's ideas rather
Right.
than a storyteller who's trying to tell a story with a map, if that makes
Right.
sense. And that's why, so I always go back to Tolkien because, I mean, you probably know this more than I do. He created those maps that we see in the front of his books, right?
Yes.
Yes. And that's why those in particular are strong for me, is because he was doing that for his story. Like, he probably drew things and then ended up writing them into the story because of the power of how it looked on the map and vice versa, right?
Right. And there's some inconsistencies for those of you that are Tolkien fans in chat. And don't yell at Greg. He doesn't know.
Don't yell at
He
me.
knows
Tell
not
tell
what he
me
doesn't
where
know.
I've messed up.
Right. There are bits and pieces of them. So I tell everyone maps are representational. They're not exact. They can't be, even if you want them to be. One, because you're trying to draw something round on a flat piece of paper.
Yeah.
So mathematically, that doesn't even add up. But also because things change. You can't draw things to scale, or else it would just look like a massive green lines for trees, you know. And so most of what Tolkien drew, he drew as like bits and pieces of notes to his story, and some of it went along the lines of the map, and some of it didn't. But I love it just because it was drawn in a way that it looked like somebody who couldn't take an aerial view of the world and had walked in on foot and just drew what they saw as they were going along. And that was a huge inspiration behind a lot of my maps.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this would be such a cool gift to give someone, is to actually give them a visual representation of a world that they created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love this.
I absolutely love being able to take somebody's story or imagination or their world and make it a much more realistic thing for them. And just watching their expressions when they see it is astronomical to me. There's no better gift I could possibly have.
And I just really love the idea of you just filling in things and putting in your own little story hooks in there. It's really cool.
Well, it's very D&D, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think like that's when, I mean, back in the 4th edition days, there was that idea of the points of light kind of idea that, like, here's the map.
Yeah.
You don't know anything beyond this town or this kind of protected area, and let's explore it.
Yeah.
And let's find
What's
out.
out there?
We know maybe there's a monster over there, but we don't know. And then that kind of portal is what these maps provide for adventurers, in world, as well as for the players who are pretending to be adventurers.
It's also a great way to learn how to really DM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you a DM?
Yes.
Do you create your own worlds? And
Yes.
I imagine.
I actually I have co-DM'd more than I have just DM'd by myself.
Oh.
I love to co-DM. The character I've played most is also an NPC for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I had a job at one time where my schedule would be like last minute, like within 15 minutes of whether or not I was going into work, which meant that I might be at D&D night, I may not, And so my DM found the perfect way was to just like, okay, then you're going to be this NPC tonight. And I would have information that that character would know and a costume, and I would show up with props because I'm a complete LARPer. And and that's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do. because I like making props and visual aids and things to sort of help players like really like, ooh, and they would sit there and like, okay, we all have to guess what character Deven is playing tonight.
That's
So-
awesome.
That's awesome. Yep.
I love the photographs that you take of your maps because they include little props and things on the edges and on the outside, mostly as holding down the maps on the outside.
Yeah.
So there's a practical purpose to that, which I totally stole. I mean, we had the Beetle and Grimm folks in here earlier, but once because they provided a few maps in their thing, and I just was like, oh, I can use the props that they have to hold down the corners of the maps, and then it ended up being this nice little, for lack of a better word, tablescape for
Very
my
nice.
players. Yeah, I love that.
There's about ready to be, hopefully within the next month, some really awesome, I want to make full-on props. So I'm making what I call master maps, and they are done on fabric with embroidered edges. You'd be able to hang them up like a tapestry,
Ooh.
or take down, lay them out.
So you do a shimmy.
Oh, shimmy.
Oh, yeah. I'm going
Like
all
it.
sorts out for this. I'm including navigational tools.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just a fun, huge project, and you'll get to like pick and choose what you want to include in your master map.
Now, can you make 1,000 of them? Because I'm thinking
Scale up. You got it.
But each one would take roughly 2 to 3 weeks to make easily.
Okay.
So how are you going to do that, as a Patreon type thing, or what?
I'm going to start with doing it with my patrons first, just because it's a little bit easier, and it'll help me like refine the process so I can actually make them for more than one person at a time. But and also, so it kind of helps to pay for buying all the materials and the equipment that I need to do this. So
Yeah.
instead of doing a Kickstarter, because those things scare me, and it's a lot easier doing it that way. So, and then they'll be available to anyone will be able to pick and hopefully buy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is that nature of each one of these items you're creating being handmade.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
feels
why
D&D.
people enjoy your work and want to participate in it. But it's not necessarily something that can scale up to make 1,000 of them, for example.
Right. Yeah, that would.
Unless you can get cloned.
Right.
Well, I have an amazing wife who does a lot of stuff with me, but she can't draw maps the way I do. So
That's
that still
a
is
skill.
going to be.
It's a very refined skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that.
Do the two of you play Dungeons and Dragons together? Do you LARP together?
Well, if we had more time, then yes to both of those. She hasn't actually played much since she's been like in her, since high school. But she thinks it's hysterical that I still LARP and I still play. And I have a play-by-post, a couple of games going on in my Discord, and hopefully there'll be some more coming up soon. But it's kind of hard to play in person. So also because, internet's so much easier to play that way.
Do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy doing the calling in and doing Skype stuff like this?
I do. Well, I love doing stuff like this just because I love being able to communicate with the community on a much wider scale.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's hard about it is that there's a lot of there are shows. I'm used to where we play D&D. We play the same campaign for years. We would become incredibly close as friends. We would spend every waking hour just talking about what we were going to do the next time we were in game. So the idea of I was on an online show and we were playing it, and then like none of the other characters wanted to talk about the show in between, and I'm like, this is really strange. Like, how are we going to decide what we're doing next episode? And
Right.
no, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to my normal games. I really am bad at this.
It is. I mean, we've talked about that a lot when we talk to streamers and stuff
Yeah.
too, where it's a different animal than your home game, right? Like your
Yes.
home game is the one where you do a lot of that heavy lifting and that working in between sessions. But when people are doing it for the audience, they're like, well, let's make sure what we're doing is always for the audience rather than
Right.
for ourselves. But people go back and forth. I mean, I think there's ways to do that. So you're sharing the notes that you're passing back and forth online in a forum, and then the audience can participate, perhaps as well.
Oh,
too.
I give credit to anyone who can.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great. I love watching. I love to come into Twitch and just find random shows. I just think it's amazing. I just personally, I can't, I just can't get as into it. I'm like, no, I have no one to talk about my character with. It's not
We
fair.
all need that.
Yeah, so
Agreed.
it's not quite the same.
Now, you've done some streaming with you creating maps, right? What's that like?
It's gotta
At
be
first,
cool.
it was terrifying. There's a bunch of people watching me draw, which is very odd.
I'm picturing like a Bob Ross kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh God!
Put some
everybody
a
says
dark, deadly forest over here in the corner.
Here's a
Yeah.
really foreboding mountain.
Oh yeah, everyone's like happy little trees. I'm like, I have
Nope.
murderous trees.
My trees aren't happy.
They're tree ants, motherfucker.
Oh yeah, like no.
Yeah.
no, I absolutely love it. I do two types of streaming. I do patron only, where we go into world building, we go into cartography, we talk about looking at creating your world from a cartographer's point of view.
Mm.
So we go all the way back to the creation of the planet to kind of help you decide where your coastlines are or where your continents are, because a lot of people are like, I don't even know what to draw for a coastline.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I can help you with that.
Right. Plate tectonics. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. And I try and give them as an abridged version as possible, because I don't really think anyone wants to know, every minute detail. But if they ask, I'm just as enthusiastic as that earth science teacher I asked.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that that's where maps should start, is
Yes.
with how the way coastlines and continents were formed in our world, and you should really think about it that way. And I loved that portion of cartography, because it actually made you think about, like, oh, well, this river can't flow from the desert to the mountains. That doesn't make any sense. It needs to go from the mountains to the desert, or
high
to the
point to low point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really understand that until I started drawing a map to kind of get that point out there.
Yeah. And I always specify, we, our industry, us living on this planet, our construction, it all changes the ecosystem of the local areas, and that spreads out in like a butterfly effect. And in fantasy cartography, granted, unless there is a magical reason why something is flowing uphill, it's not going to. But it's not to say that it can't occur, because we don't actually know the effects of somebody sending lightning bolt every 5 seconds would have on the local ecosystem. So it is possible.
It's a good story hook right there.
I know, right? Now I want to write that world.
Even mistakes can be turned into something.
Yeah.
Golden.
So I will get people that will try and correct me on a map. Like, you can't just have a river started in the middle of a field. Well, technically you can, because even in our world, there's underwater water sources that flow upward.
Right.
But
rare, but it happens.
Yeah. But there are, of course, we don't know the effects magic would have repetitively done on a particular area. So,
I feel like you can take some creative freedoms with fantasy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, your answer can always be like, you don't know that.
Yeah.
You don't know what the story is.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of impact magnetic fields would have if somebody was constantly charging off lightning.
Yeah. It's true.
It could make the water flow upstream.
It could tilt the entire planet.
It's true. I just read a fascinating thing that was being talked about, where when the European settlers came to the Americas and South Americas, that through the disease and all the things that happened with the awful treatment of the native folk, that actually had ecological effects on our world, as far as the mass reforestation. We always think about, like, the forestation being like, oh, that's great, there was a lot more trees out there, but then that changed the climate a lot, and that was what created a mini ice age in, like, the 1600s or something like that. And I'm like, that's really fascinating. I never thought that the changing of populations would have that kind of an effect, and that's something that a fantasy world can encompass with any of that type of stuff. If there was, like, a massive war, or say an entire city gets transported to the other side of the world, that happens in all of our stories sometimes, but, like, what are the effects of that happening out, and then having that reflected in the maps.
Exactly. So that's one of the reasons why I'll have somebody, like, give me information. They're like, and you can fix anything that's wrong. And I'm like, oh, only if it's, like, painfully wrong. Like, when we look at something, like going back to Tolkien, everyone's like, he's got a square mountain range. Well, yeah. And that's because we just don't see things like that normally. So we don't want to accept it as, like, okay, this is, normal. So that's the only thing where I'm like, yeah, no, everyone's going to ask about this really strange looking mountain range, or this looks like a cat. Like, your island looks like something, because everything I do is an inkblot test.
Right.
Again, story hook.
It's a butterfly.
It's where the tabaxi live.
That's where the tabaxi live, because it looks like a cat.
People usually see genitalia the most.
Oh, that is very true. I mean, just look at Florida. It's
That is
terrible.
actually true. In our team meeting yesterday, Nathan drew something on the board, and I was like,
Yep.
When you're 14 at heart,
Right.
that is.
That's what I tell
You
everyone.
don't
I'm like, I'm
outgrow
just a 14-year-old just drawing phallic symbols all over maps. Just that's all.
See if you can find them all. It's an Easter egg type thing.
Exactly, right? I have the exact number of how many are on there. See if you can find them all.
If you can find them all.
Right? That's like those
That would
old
totally
activity
work
books of like,
if-
find all the.
I could DM an adventure about The Bachelor, and you could make me a map like that. Hubba hubba.
There you go.
Here's what's it called?
Find all the fantasy
the fantasy
suites.
suites. Oh, that's so bad.
No,
I can
bringing it back.
that, right?
What's that?
Nothing.
Yeah, Mordor as a square mountain range I was always like, I don't think that would be real. But it didn't matter because it was where the bad guy was. So of course it was strange.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons and that's the other side of that argument is you could just literally make it anything, any reason for it. You know, he shook down the other mountains that were in that range. Who
Yeah.
knows? He made them form there to protect his fortress. You know.
Yeah.
So.
What's a better barrier than mountains? Razor sharp mountains.
Exactly. So.
But we can't simply walk in there. That's the problem.
Yeah, you just can't walk into Mordor.
So what kind of, what's your history with gaming? I mean, you mentioned LARPing and your dungeon mastering, but like, how did it, progress after that session when you were 14 and playing?
I really quickly got into LARPing, mostly because at the time, so I was like 14, so we're talking the late 80s, mid to late 80s. It was very much a boys' game, and I was always kind of gothic. So not only was I like the unheard of goth that apparently plays D&D, because none of my friends ever heard of Vampire the Masquerade
Yet.
And that actually is what got me into LARPing. So that was actually my longest running LARPing campaign, which was amazing. And I played it off and on for years and years, like up until roughly, I want to say like 10 years ago. I kind of got sick. I ended up moving. So I was no longer around my D&D group. So, because, you always have more than one. At one point, I was playing at least 5 games a week.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Of D&D?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was just a little bit obsessed with playing
5 different games?
5 different games, yeah. And 2 of which I co-DM'd.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's
I had the
insane.
time. I figured, why not?
Right?
Yeah.
You
The
know?
worst things you could be doing.
Right. And I just filled that in with some video games because I love to play those. And so now I just feel like I'm part of everyone's game.
By supplying
are,
maps
yeah.
everywhere? Right.
All that, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm just going to make you an NPC in my world." I'm like, I am okay with that, and I just had a mini made, so you can have me as an actual NPC.
No way.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I love it.
Yeah. I just finished her character sheet yesterday. So, and hopefully they'll be for sale soon.
Oh my God,
Sweet.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
The reason I was asking about LARPing and stuff too is because I think I've never actually done it. I've never done any kind of live action role playing.
Which is weird.
Which is
Because
weird.
of your theater background.
Exactly. And I had
Right.
a friend in college who did it for whatever reason. I was never invited to go and attend with her. But she would kind of talk about it, and I was always fascinated about that blend between tabletop role playing and theater and how it all worked together. So yeah, I mean, is there any, obviously using props and things is stuff that people are doing now in their games more and more. But what are some other things from that world that could translate more to current fans of playing around a table?
The one of the things that I loved about LARPing is the moment that you arrived, you were in character. And you got to stay in character the entire time. And so you essentially have other people that kind of work as your DM, that are there with you, and they'll say, like, time out, out of character, just to help explain things further. But it's a really immersive experience that you can have at a table. You don't have to go out to have a really immersive game. So one of my old groups, I used to have a group of people that are visually or audibly impaired. And one of the reasons that I really, really got into doing props, even on a smaller scale, was instead of me reading, something to someone else who can't entirely read their character sheet, I would just put like little potions in front of them and like, okay, you have this many health potions. And every time you use one, I take them away.
I like that.
Yeah. And just a great way to, and it would make them, like, especially with coins, like give them like a actual sack of coins, and they're like, they make it rain in their game, which is great as a DM, because they all, just piss their money away and end up with virtually nothing.
But it was fun for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just a great way to, I loved trying to bring LARPing into a table setting for my friends that were visually impaired with me. So
I hadn't even thought of the folks that couldn't interpret, a character sheet and how much those tactile things could bring them into the game. I just like them as the tactile things anyway, as being a part of it. And I one of my favorite, and it wasn't even a prop, it was just something that I think I collected over time, but I always kept it in my dice bag for when I was dungeon mastering, was a sack of coins. And it was I didn't have a lot of props, but that was the one I could always be like, all right, you get paid, and they throw this at you. And I would usually literally throw it on the table in front of them, and there was this like shock moment where the player would be like,
what, metal clinking and that thunk as it hits the table.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's just something really powerful about that, and it brings everybody into that moment. And so I would love for more people to do that. And that's why, partly I was inspired to do some of the stuff during the stream of Many Eyes, was to kind of blend this live action role playing with the stuff that most people do around the table with costumes and things like that.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's why I get in a costume every time. And even if I'm streaming from my house, I have my own props that I play with the entire time that we're actually live streaming the game. If we're live streaming, because now we don't really. But
what is your character?
Well, right now because I created Rue, is the name of the tiefling cartographer that you can have as an NPC. I'm currently playing her to make sure that I made a character that's playable.
So, play
testing yourself. Yeah. It's a good exercise for everyone.
Really?
That sounds wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I am playing myself.
It's your birthday.
I'm allowed.
It's different than dancing with yourself.
Is it?
I don't know. We'll ask Billy Idol. He's going to show up on one of these images behind us pretty soon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no. So I'm currently playing her, so I can kind of get a better feel for it, because I made her a druid, and I actually made her a level 20 druid because it just made more sense as an NPC, because she would be a guide and able to survive in the local terrain.
Right.
But I didn't want to take any further points, because I don't want to make like an overpowered NPC. So I took all feats every time that she leveled up, which was really interesting, because I still think I might have accidentally made her a little OP. I was like, oh wow, I took some pretty good feats.
Yeah, but when you're 20th level, I think that's kind of the deal. You're supposed to be overpowered.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't want her to be insane, because also I didn't want to make a character that was so great that everyone's going to mass murder me and steal all my cool stuff.
Oh.
Because, I was a 14 murder hobo. And yeah, it's like you walk into a tavern, I kill everyone there and I take their stuff.
Maybe Rue's stuff automatically disintegrates if something happens to her. It's fantasy. It can happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You don't know.
That's good.
You don't know.
You don't know what kind of magic's on here.
That's spoken like a true dungeon master over there.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I'll have to add that into her character sheet now.
There you go. I like the
codium. At least 2 or 3 wondrous items.
Oh, see?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They go with her.
Because you're going to have to. You're out traveling the entire world. You're bound to collect some pretty neat stuff.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of many a D&D adventure is to find the fun thing,
Yeah.
that fun item.
And she will she hires out people to get her information about uncharted territories, so she can actually hire your adventuring party.
Oh, I love that.
And she sells you stuff too.
Maps? Does she come with maps?
Yep. She sells you maps. She sells you cartography kits. She sells you the navigational tools. And she will sell you, she has potions because she does alchemy and poisons.
Oh, she sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's that's a great patron. That's to use as a quest giver for all types of things. I've always wanted to start a campaign that was like a Lewis and Clark type of a thing. Like, it's not necessarily you're out to get treasure or anything like that. You just need to get to this area that no one's ever been to before and map it as much as you can. You need Rue to send you out on that mission. Yeah.
I want her to come with me.
Yeah.
I want to go with you.
Come with me, Rue.
The Rue and Shelley expedition.
That would be awesome. Birthday expedition.
Right.
So, I've done some maps, but dabbled a long time ago. And I'm sure you get this question a lot, but what are some tips, some tricks, some things that people can start with in order to feel small accomplishments along the way to get to finally leveled up to level 20 like you are?
I always tell people 3 things. One, of course, practice makes perfect. I draw every single day.
Wow.
I usually draw anywhere from 5 to 12 hours a day.
That's insane.
I love what I do. Absolutely love what I do. The second thing is don't strive for perfection, because there is no such thing, even on our own planet. If you don't believe me, go to Google Earth, zoom, start all the way out. As when it starts off, you're looking in through space. And as you click in, you'll realize there's very little detail until you're extremely close. And so that means that if you're drawing a world map, you're really not going to see any of these things. So they can be completely representational. They don't have to be exactly to scale or to size, so it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be able to tell your story and to intrigue your players enough that they want to explore it. And third is, like I said before, you don't know the effects that magic has on your world. So create something unique that is just for you and your players. Because ultimately, at least for me as a DM, I want my players to tell their story. I want to create a world that they can go in and explore, and everything is going on around them, but their story is ultimately what they decide it should be. And so I just want to give them as much as I possibly can to tell the kind of story that they want.
I love that.
Yep.
And I didn't realize until you were talking through that last example how much world building is dovetailed into what you do.
Yes.
But that's a whole other thing. Is that how do you go about building a fantasy world from scratch if you were given that task?
I start with at the very, very beginning. I literally start with it's just a bunch of gas floating through space that's attracted to each other, and then the world forms, so I can figure out where the fault lines are, where the coastlines would be. And it takes a really short amount of time because I'm just sort of really quickly sketching everything out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's enough to tell me that by the time that I want to actually start genuinely okay, where are the continents? Where is everything? Where, what kind of biomes would be in a particular area? It's so much easier to flesh out that way. And then I can actually start with where civilizations start.
Mm-hmm.
And then this way, because they get a civilization, starts, dies out, gets buried, and then is in another layer of earth as the next, civilization is built on top of that. And that helps you figure out where your dungeons will be, where you'll find runes, where you'll find treasure, where you'll find artifacts. And then it helps you decide what parts of those histories are saved or not. And that determines your world's mythology.
Okay, that is so cool. I love that. The different layers and how that turns into future ruins and dungeons. Oh, that's so cool.
And this is stuff I love to go over. So I love them when I get to have live streams with my patrons. They ask me some really great questions that they found out I can go on huge tangents on.
You love what you do.
That's
Oh,
great.
I do.
It sounds
the
like
best.
how I talk to my girls when they ask questions about like, where do mountains come from? I'm like, okay, so
Let's watch
plate
Devin's live
tectonics. This
stream.
plate
Yeah.
goes into this one, and then the guy needs to go somewhere, so it pushes up sometimes, or sometimes it pushes down. In that case, so like
Or under.
or under, yeah, exactly.
Do your girls really ask you questions like that?
They did
I do
literally
not.
ask me where do mountains come from.
I don't get those questions.
Last week I got that question. Yeah. And they ask, in general, me and Aaron, and Aaron's like, Greg, what,
Ask your dad.
yeah, what is that? I'm like, all right, I can
No.
tell you as much as I know about it. Let's go. And then we got into earthquakes, and then they get, Fiona
They
gets scared of earthquakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That's scary.
rightly so, but I'm always
They're
like,
great for D&D, but not so much for children.
exactly. A
Yeah.
good old cataclysm.
I guess
Yeah,
you can
and-
think about that too when you're doing your maps.
Right.
Was
Well,
there
the
an
other thing is,
earthquake?
like, I'll tell DMs, like, oh, by the way, this would be in this particular area, or like this type of mountain would indicate that there's a lot of seismic activity going on in this,
Mhm.
like mountains along a coast actually mean that there's more seismic activity was most recent in that area's history. Whether or not they're occurring now, is up to the DM, but it does mean that occurred the soonest in that world's history.
Yeah.
And so it gives him a little bit more of like, oh, well, then I could write, XYZ in there. And you can actually have natural things occur to your party instead of everything is just being the big baddie and magic.
Yeah.
And, it's just, what are you guys going to do in the middle of an earthquake?
Time to throw an earthquake
Magic?
at your players.
Throw
That's
a
what that
lightning
sounds
bolt
like.
at it.
Throw lightning bolts every 5 minutes up the river.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Natural disasters are terrifying.
They really are. I didn't. Now I've never actually used those as a dungeon master
Now you're
before.
giving Greg all sorts of
Yeah,
terrible ideas.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of players right now that are not letting their DMs watch this stream. I have that effect.
This is where players come to die,
Well,
or characters come to die, rather.
yeah, it's better.
They might live.
Yeah, you never know.
Be a little bit more optimistic there, Greg.
Yeah, that's true.
So where do you find inspiration for these maps and these worlds? Like, do you travel a lot or anywhere to see something cool that's like, oh, that would be a great idea on a map? Or
I have traveled extensively in my life, so that's where a lot of it comes from. I used to go around essentially with a sketchbook, and if I just saw something really cool, I would like really quickly draw it, or I'd take pictures of it and bring them home and sketch those. But I have always had an exceedingly wild imagination, which up until I started doing this for a living was a very, very downside of my personality. Just because, I would come up with the most fanciful reasons as to why anything happened. Probably didn't make any of my bosses happy. Yeah, I came up with some pretty good excuses as to why I wasn't into work. Didn't save me from not getting fired, but that isn't the point.
I was up all night making a map. Didn't count.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Not anything that for that game you play.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned you playing video games. What type of games do you play?
All RPGs.
Oh, okay.
I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan, and that's actually what the internet first discovered me by. Skyrim came out, and I drew a map because the map that came with the game didn't look anything like the map that was in the game.
Right.
And I was like, I have to fix this. I need a prop map, And so I did. So I drew it, and I started posting it, and then I got a bunch of people like, you draw maps? Can you draw me? Well, first it started off with everyone wanting me to draw maps of established worlds, which copyright, sorry, But then it was like, well, can you draw a map of my world? I was like, I guess.
Yeah. Why not?
If I can draw a map of one world, I can draw it of another. And it just started to snowball from there.
The reason I mean, there's a new Civilization coming out soon, and I was like, oh, you mentioned Civilization a couple of times, and I was like, I wonder if she plays Civilization, because it's a very map-heavy game.
Yeah, I don't play it nearly as much as I do Elder Scrolls Online now. because I'm still, I need my Elder Scrolls fixed,
Yeah.
and they haven't come out with anything since 2011,
Yeah,
and I need the next Dragon Age as well.
that's true. Yeah.
So if they could just get on it, that'd be great.
Inquisition did so good at mapping in a way too, and having the map be that focal point for the players to exact change on the world.
Yes.
I love that because it was a very fantasy thing to me.
Oh yeah, I mean the biggest reason I love Elder Scrolls is you just get to explore. You don't even have to do quests.
Yeah.
You could just go and explore, and you'll find an insane amount of stuff. They hide Easter eggs all over their games.
Mm-hmm.
Just really cool things that you will randomly come across, which is, obviously things that I love. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I love that franchise so much.
How cool would it be if there was a D&D world, like Forgotten Realms version of trying to do something like that?
If you guys want to do it, I am all over that map.
Nice. Well, we'll put you top of the list for that, for sure.
Ed Greenwood actually has one of my maps of Faerun.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody contacted me to make a birthday gift for him. To
Wow.
make the map of Faerun on leather. So he's a huge leather map of Faerun in his writing office.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
On
I cried a little.
leather.
But, yeah.
Wow.
How big was it?
I think it's like 3 feet wide.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was all hand done, and it took an insane amount of time.
Is leather not a good medium for maps?
Leather is a horrible medium for maps, despite what people really want. It's horrible. Not only will it dry and crack, and eventually, even if there are a lot of upkeep. So most maps actually were never drawn on leather. And parchment, it's actually animal skin, which most people don't know. They think it's like a form of paper, and it's not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's animal skin. And so it also had its problems, although it would last a little bit longer than paper that was too thin. But most maps were drawn on cloth. Yeah.
Back in fantasy times, I guess.
Yes, which is why the master maps are on cloth, because it's the best medium. It takes a lot to get it printed, but it's the best medium to have them done on. And you can wash them.
They get dirty after a long adventure.
Well, especially when you're taking them into the dungeon.
Right.
Getting
Yeah.
dusty.
Yep.
Yeah. Mostly
Or,
from pooping your
a
pants.
bunch of you are sitting around drinking beers, one of you knocks it over.
That's a much
There's
better thing. I
that.
was gonna say if you get a big scary dragon in your face, and you're carrying your map.
Yeah, I can't guarantee you can get blood stains off them, though. Sorry.
That's not where he was going.
All kinds of
Poop.
different poop problems.
On that note,
I am so
know,
happy
right.
I don't play in one of your games.
It's all poop
Okay.
jokes. It really is.
Right back to being 14. I'm there.
yeah.
I know, right?
Phallic symbols and poop.
We're young at heart.
Yeah.
Well, I am fascinated. I love the fact that you have turned this into a career,
Me too.
and I want, not necessarily to have competitors, but I want more people to join in this, love of creating props and maps.
I cannot possibly make enough maps for everybody. So yeah, by all means, this is why I teach other people how to make maps.
I love that.
I'm only one person. Come join me.
For now.
How can people, watch your streams, join your Patreon? Give us the spiel.
Yeah, everything is under Deven Rue all over the internet. So you can find me at patreon.com/Deven Rue, twitch.com Deven Rue, twitter.com Deven Rue, everything. One name, super simple.
Nice.
Just spell it correctly.
That's an important
Yes.
step.
Everyone
but
puts
it's
an O or an I in it.
even that's pretty simple. Well, I mean, maybe through the
A.
pronunciation, but DEVANRUE.
Is it A-N or E-N?
E.
Same.
Damn it, I screwed it up already. Darn it.
I screwed it
the
up
word
earlier.
seven, but with a D.
Devin.
It'll be in the show notes. You'll be able to interpret it better than you can from my voice because I'm an idiot.
Tita, lift you up.
Yeah, just don't spell it wrong. What's the first thing Greg does?
Don't
I know.
do
Well, I was
what
going
Greg
out on a
did.
limb. I was
He was
like, I
showing
think
us-
I got it because I was like, if you're calling people out for spelling it wrong, you should spell it. But all right, it's my fault.
Wah.
I'm a terrible person. It has been a joy up until this point talking to you.
It was great till that point.
Yeah, I know, right? It's all downhill from now, unfortunately.
She's never coming back.
But you're awesome. I've always been a big fan of your work, and I want to be able to splurge and commission you when you get time for more commissions in the future. Yeah, I know. I think you said you have like a backlog of like 2 years at this point, right?
Whoa.
Yeah, now I'm at 2 years. Yeah. I was at 4 years. But amazingly, I got through more than I expected last year. So I'm at
2
almost 2
years.
years.
I know.
Yes.
Isn't that insane?
Well, you'll have time to save your money.
That's right. Saving it up.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. Well, it's fantastic, and folks should definitely join into your Patreon to get all of those maps as part of that.
And the live streams. That
and the
sounds
live streams.
awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Learn a thing or two.
Learn it.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk to you in the
Yeah,
future
and
time.
thank you
Have
so
a
much for
wonderful
having me.
birthday.
Yes, and happy birthday!
Thank
Another
you.
year around the sun.
Yep. A good year.
Death-defying anniversary.
That's right.
Exactly.
You have defied it.
Okay.
Knock on wood.
All right.
Day's not over.
Bye, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone who is watching on the Twitches. You are amazing. We are going to take a short break and come back with me speaking to Mike Merles.
The Mike Merles.
All about some lore you should know. I actually don't know what the topic is going to be. I tasked Mike after I volunteered him to come in and do this.
Maybe birthdays?
Maybe it's birthdays.
Maybe.
It probably won't be birthdays. But do you want it to be birthdays?
No.
No. All right.
I
It
don't
might
think
be.
that's that interesting.
Do you want to give away one more thing before you get out of here? Do you have?
Probably got some more Axis and Allies and Zombies.
Yeah.
And some mayhem.
Well, we're gonna do that, and an Art and Arcana, a copy of Art and Arcana,
What?
adding
You're
to
gonna
this
throw in-
package, as well as a map. I feel like we don't
What?
give away maps very often, but in honor of this conversation, let's give away the map to Tomb of Horrors.
Wow.
A cloth map.
What? Cloth even.
it is on
so
cloth.
you can wash it.
So you can watch it. It's
We've
true.
learned.
Yes, it is an amazing map. We used it as a giveaway a few years ago for Tales from the Yawning Portal when you could play through the 5th
Yes.
edition version of the Tomb of Horrors in there. And I loved giving it away as a prop to adventurers as they're going through that. There's a lot of clues that you can find in the Tomb of Horrors adventure, and in lieu of one of those, I was like, here, you get this map, but it's not necessarily all use to the player characters. So it's be fun, but we'll give that away in addition to Art and Arcana and Axis and Allies and Zombies
and Dungeon Mayhem.
and Dungeon Mayhem. That's a pretty good package.
Good package.
That's a really good package. Maybe I'll put a mug in there too.
that mug. People are. Oh, Devin wants a mug.
Everybody wants one of these
Devin wants
mugs.
a mug.
We will send a mug to Devin for sure. And what? And a map. Mug and a map
To Devin.
to Devin.
Devin, you're
exactly.
the winner of a mug and a map.
It's your birthday, after all. Excellent. All right, so are people already queued up in there doing Shelly Moo rocks or whatever it is?
Hey.
Excellent. Well, you do rock.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do a winner. Let's see who will win that amazing
Winner,
package.
winner. Dun, 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 dun.
It's happening. One more time. Fraley
Fraley
17.
17.
You are the winner. You will get
The
a
17th Fraley.
D&D mug,
The
a
best.
map of Tomb of Horrors, Axis and Allies and Zombies, Art and Arcana, visual history of D&D, and
Dungeon Mayhem.
Dungeon
Did you say
Mayhem.
Dungeon Mayhem?
and Axis and Allies and Zombies.
Yes.
And Dungeon Mayhem.
And Dungeon Mayhem.
Like lots
No,
of copies.
they're going to think that they're getting 2 copies of
It's
Dungeon
even
Mayhem.
more confusing than it was. Oh, we are professionals, and it is our birthday. It's my birthday, too. We'll just say it's my
Wow.
birthday.
Joining in.
And I'm 75 years old.
No, Devin, it's not his birthday.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with no more birthday girls, so we'll say bye.
Goodbye. Thank you, everyone, for celebrating my birthday.
It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. Until next year.
Until next year. We'll have to do it on a live stream next year.
And we're going to have to do something for your birthday.
No, nothing. I'm going to be in the woods. We'll live stream from the woods. I know. We'll do it.
Not
we'll make it
wearing
happen.
pants.
Without pants. See,
Without
that's
pants.
it's very important to have the no pants birthday.
No pants on the wood.
All right. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Goodbye,
See you guys later.
friends.
Bye.